Come on.
They're right there!
Let's go. Move, 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 move. This episode of Choices Not Chances podcast is sponsored by Louisiana Gun Shop, located on Highway 90 West in Broussard, Louisiana, just south of Lafayette. For more information, stay tuned at the end of this episode. This is Choices Not Chances podcast with Ryan and Matt. I'm your co-host, Matthew Charette. Sitting next to me is Ryan Rogers. Ryan.
All right, guys. Hey, thanks for coming back. And just like every other episode, if you see anything in this episode that resonates with you, that you think needs to be shared out to the greater audience, and I'm talking about our law enforcement community, I'm talking about our military community, and I'm talking about our military family communities. Today, I'm bringing on a guest that's special to me, and it might not be special to anybody else, but it is to me because this man, Dave Grossman, Lieutenant Colonel, retired Dave Grossman, author of many books, but notably On Combat and On Killing, both which were on the Commandant's reading list for the Marine Corps as I was coming up as a junior NCO through the ranks, and they were required readings because of the depth in which they go into the art of killing and the art of combat. And so somebody that I've been trying to get on for, in my mind for a lot longer, but it seemed to be pretty easy. I picked up the phone, picked up an email, and Mr. Grossman's been generous enough with his time to meet me, here on a Monday morning and have a little chat. But I hope you guys stay tuned for this whole episode. It's sure to bring content that if you're in the communities that I listed before will absolutely be impactful to you. So without further ado, Mr. Grossman, Mr. Dave Grossman, thanks for coming on.
Well, Ryan, it's my pleasure, brother. And again, just Dave. But you know what? Right up front, I always try to honor the podcast process. When I was a kid, we had 3 TV networks, and half a dozen national magazines, a couple of radio stations, and if you didn't get on them, your voice never got heard. But now we've got the podcast revolution. And people, I've been on 60 Minutes in 2020, and it was a total waste of time. They had a 3-minute soundbite, and they controlled what was said. But the podcast revolution, it represents people seeking deeper knowledge. And the podcast providers. Now, you're not doing this for money. You're not doing this. It'd be great to make a living off of it. Everybody deserves to, but you're doing this because you got a voice that needs to be said. It's kind of like the newspaper, tomorrow it was, it's birdcage liner, it's done. But these podcasts will still be 100 years from now. People say, what was it like for Ryan in the trenches? What was it like to be in combat? And they go back and they can track on that. So I honor those who put their effort into doing these podcasts, and I honor those who listen and are seeking deeper levels of knowledge. It's been a lot of fun, and we live in a crazy world. To tie on to that, you mentioned my books. In almost every single case, really without fail, in all of my books, the audio books, and I do the narration for my own books, the audio books are outselling any other version of the book. So people are going and they're working, they're driving a truck, they're working in a factory, but they got the earbud in and they're listening and they're learning and they're expanding their horizons while they go about their life. So it's a beautiful thing. It's a good thing. And my hat goes off to you working hard to put this together. I'm pleased to be of service to your wonderful audience and talk about your book and your follow-on books and what I've got going on as books. And I tell people we live in a time with this room for lots of books. Even if your grandkids are the only ones ever read it, write that book. And the book writing process is healing and powerful all by itself. The book has a mind of its own. Following that path, and there's a path to healing and a path to knowledge in there. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I'd like to echo what you said about the podcast process. I'm a host of a podcast that I started because of how much I get out of podcasts, out of others' podcasts. And I frequently tell people that in the time that, I was going to school to get my degrees, all I did was podcast. I podcast and I did homework and research, and then I podcast, while doing homework and research. And in the 3 years that it took me to get my degrees, I learned more from watching Joe Rogan, Jordan Peterson, Jocko Willink, than I ever thought about learning and retaining from the university. Now, there's reasons why that is. There's a whole lot broader of, topics that those podcasts are going to have on them than just my Homeland Security degree, let's say. However, like I found that by listening to these hosts interview these other experts, I could become smarter just by listening to the conversation, right? And that's essentially what reading is. Reading is, I'm going to read your experiences that you put down for me, and podcast is just talking experiences. So it's a beautiful thing. And when I got caught up in learning as much as I was learning, I was like, I've got to be a part of this. This is going to be the way. And so, Jocko's doing Navy SEAL stories and some SOCOM stories. And, some of these other guys nobody was doing Marine stories. And I was there for a lot of it, so it was like, I know all of these heroes that live in this local area. I know them. I served with them right alongside most of them. And so I started bringing them on, and then it just became this thing where it's like, it's not just people of service. It's people that are giving back and have that voice and have that knowledge. That's what I want to bring to the table. And your name, obviously, on the short list for that. Being, your books have definitely helped me in the past, and I know helped, countless other war fighters. So yeah, the podcasting thing is a big thing, and it's a quick, a easy way to get information out to people who want the information. Growing it and such is a topic for another day. There's the business side of that, but actually sitting down, not a lot of people just sit down and have an intimate 2 or 3 hour conversation with somebody. Like you said, they're 30-second sound bites, and that's what we get to vote on, and that's what we get to think on, and that's what our fast, hyper, paced world is. And so I enjoy sitting back and actually diving and pulling those strings out and saying, let's get to the root of, the topic of conversation. Amen. Another reason, sir, that I wanted to have you on, and we can get to it, I have a couple questions from guests, but over the last period of 3 years, I started teaching critical intervention training with the police. I started up in Ohio, and now it started to branch out a little bit from there. But coming off of 20 years of war, I would be interested to pick your brain a bit on critical intervention and the need for it in our forces, especially our police forces. Essentially, what I try to tell these guys is, there's a vast number of veterans that have been over and done combat in some capacity. That doesn't mean they necessarily were stacking bodies. I'm not saying that, but it does mean that they were in combat at some capacity. And when they come back, people deal with that in different ways. There's medications, there's self-medications, there's no medications, and people deal with that. And when you come up against those situations as a day-to-day cop, what are a couple of pieces of advice that you would throw out, rudimentary or basic pieces of advice that you would give for critical intervention?
Well, there's a couple of angles. First, is kind of a common frame of reference. My books, especially on combat, if you're going to read one book, during the pandemic, On Combat became a mega bestseller in the medical community. And, I've been on a couple of major medical podcasts, and one guy said, the stress of an individual in combat is pretty much the same as the stress of a doctor in the middle of a pandemic with people dying all around him, making life and death decisions. But second, just to give a little piece of information in there, it's kind of, first off, it's kind of a decision tree that I teach. And the first question is, are you okay? If the answer is yes, then the answer is, I'm glad you're okay. If the answer is no, then something opens up here. Uh-huh. And sometimes it's obvious the answer is no, and you go right into this. But there's 3 questions. I'm the kind of guy who likes to take incredibly complex things and distill it down to usable chunks. I'm an old buck sergeant from Arkansas. They're just that an old buck sergeant can pick up and run with.
Mm-hmm.
A lady wrote this, and it's been embraced as de-escalation. It's been embraced everywhere. But the lady called it the 3 most important questions you'll ever ask. Number 1, please tell me what's wrong. Oh, somebody wants to hear my story.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Somebody wants to know.
Mm-hmm.
Endorphins are pumping. We got this common form of reference. Number 2, I'm sorry that happened. Oh, it's true. I mean, whatever his situation is, whatever's happened to this person, you can truthfully say, I'm sorry that happened.
Mm-hmm.
And then the final one is, I will do everything in my power to help you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So just, please tell me what's wrong. I'm sorry that happened. I would do everything in my power to help you.
Mm-hmm.
And that just cuts right to the heart of the matter. My wife's got some medical issues, a while back. I said, sweetie, please tell me exactly what's wrong. She said, thank you for asking. I'm so sorry this is happening to you. The one place where we'll break the bank and empty the savings, the one place we'll whatever it takes is your wellness. We'll do everything in our power to help.
Mm-hmm.
My little granddaughter comes in crying, oh, sweetie, tell Grandpa what's the matter. I'm sorry that happened. Do everything we can to make sure that doesn't happen again.
Mm-hmm.
So much of life is about, having it, a situation, mission, execution, service, support, command, and signal. The basic op order, right? It's been ground into our neurons from our youngest age.
Yep.
Completing procedures, backward planning process. We do it without even thinking. So put this one more little tool in your your toolbox, and as we push the envelope of the healing process, so much is about separating the memory from the emotions. In a nutshell, PTSD, every time you talk about it, you relive it.
Mm-hmm.
We want to separate the memory from the emotions. We want to talk about it without reliving it.
Mm-hmm.
EMDR, eye movement desensitization, reprogramming. Your eyes follow a visual stimulus while you talk about it. Well, the midbrain, that puppy inside, can only do one thing at a time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Ordinarily, you talk about it, and the puppy crawls in your lap and pees in your lap and grabs you by the throat, But the puppy's out front chasing a ball. That midbrain is busy right now. He's following that visual stimulus.
Mm-hmm.
And you're able to talk about it if it's done properly. And you can't just wing this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Get trained up at EMDR. If it's done properly, and just 1 or 2 times going over the memory without the emotions come along for a ride, we can separate that link.
Mm-hmm.
I talk to my cops. I say, you're doing and the tool we use is a bottle of water. You put a bottle of water in front of them, and every time they start to become emotional, stop.
Mm-hmm.
Take that big swig of water. And that swig of water calls you from sympathetic nervous system, fight or flight, to parasympathetic nervous system, rest and digest, also called feed and breathe.
Mm-hmm.
So we pull ourselves from fight or flight to feed and breathe with just that swig of water. A deer's being chased by a wolf. You stop, get a drink, you're really thirsty. I can't get a drink, I'm being chased by a wolf. The fact that you stop, you take that drink of water, the water hits the stomach, the swallowing process, the breathing process, it sends a powerful message to the body that says we're safe.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I tell my cops, let's say you're getting a witness statement from a victim of a crime. If that individual becomes emotional while they talk about what happened, then something counterproductive is happening. They're reinforcing the link between the memory and the emotion.
Mm-hmm.
But you put a bottle of water in front of them, just the power of a gift. You put a bottle of water in front of them, and every time they start to become emotional, you're getting the calm, rational statement that you need, the witness statement, right? B, they're moving down the path of wellness from the very beginning. They're separating the memory from the emotion. So your whole de-escalation thing is powerful. But remember, we're trying to pull them from fight or flight, sympathetic nervous system, to rest and digest, parasympathetic. And there's a tool that's being used across the medical community now, I trained one spec ops unit. The master sergeant that was my host.
Mm-hmm.
His wife was an emergency room psychiatrist, an ER psychiatrist. And she told him about something sweeping through the ER world, the emergency room world around the planet. You got a crackhead, a meth head, you got somebody tearing up your ER out of control.
Mm-hmm.
You know what they do? They grab a bag of M&Ms. They rip it open, they shove the guy's face, which like some M&Ms, and a large portion of the time completely diffuse the situation.
Huh.
Now, the guy telling me this, right? He's a spec ops guy, multiple combat tours. He said, I blew it off, right? You know, touchy feely new age stuff, right? Bag of it, yeah, sure. But this kind of guy carries gun off duty, kind of guy you want him to. See, 2 different times, I'm off duty, I'm armed, I'm with my wife, and I think I'm going to have to draw my gun and fight for our lives. He said both times, my wife reaches in her purse, grabs a bag of M&Ms, rips it open, shoves the guy's face, would you like some M&Ms, and completely defuse the situation. Now, it's really important to understand something. Now, after a traumatic event, you re-experience the event. A smell sets it off, a sound sets it off. That is not PTSD. It's normal. It becomes PTSD when you try to not think about it. You will literally drive yourself crazy trying to not think about it. You got to make peace with the memory. You got to separate the memory from the emotion. And that brings us back to the book process. You wrote a very powerful book with a gripping first-person narrative about the reality of combat. And those, the things you dug into are really rare throughout history. And we've opened the door now where people can do that. But that's part of the healing process. To take this memory and turn it into sterile words and sentences. You know, the process of crafting a sentence, you can't be excited and fearful, your heart pounding. Over time, you just get bored. You know, it becomes a very intellectual process. And so part of the healing is artwork, right? Taking that incident and turning it into lines and shades, you know. Artwork, the same thing is true, and more so, I believe, with the written word. Turning it into a book is part of the healing process. So here's such a great opportunity for me to get another step in that process. How was the healing process for you as you wrote your book? Could you see yourself coming from, I don't want to go there, I don't want to talk about that, I don't want to think about that, to thinking about it, and thinking and thinking and thinking? And
it definitely was therapeutic. It was definitely therapeutic in that way. You know, I started writing notes in country in 2010, and like a Write in the Rain, you know, mission book. I'd scribble down words, and I got to remember this, and I'd put a thought down. And then when I came home, I struggled really hard for a couple years, and drank, and none of that was working. And like you said, I needed to talk, and I didn't know that at the time. And maybe it's the Marine Corps I grew up in, that we just don't do that. We just drink and everything will be okay afterwards. And maybe not. I'm trying to break that stigma now, because I know that it doesn't work from experience. And I know that the talking does. But once I started talking, I think I realized the therapy that was in it. At first it was to doctors, at first it was to friends. We would just reminisce, and emotions would come out, but they weren't always bad emotions. Sometimes they were happy and positive, and that brotherhood. And, when you're in a place where, when you're in a place where things are just bad all over the place, and hearing the snap of an incoming bullet is just as relieving as it is unnerving, because it wasn't the thud that got you. Those are weird places to go, and they come with weird emotions, sometimes happy, sometimes funny. And it's hard to explain unless you've been there. But as I started to write or talk, I began to be able to formulate my language and how I wanted to present the book and present the Marines and what they did, what I experienced. And so the more that moved along, and don't get me wrong, I did some time in inpatient treatment to get my head right, as my kids were being born. And this was not a smooth, easy process, but it was a necessary process to get to a place where I could tell the story, but not only tell the story, but do justice to the Marines' actions in the story and not miss and skip, because a lot of what you talk about non-combat, with auditory and visual exclusion and complete memory loss of things that happened, or temporary amnesia. I'm not sure what, factors play into that other than, you have a file cabinet, and when something traumatic comes up, I think it's almost this self-defense mechanism to misfile all of that so that you can't bleed it all together and hurt yourself, because they know that it's going to hurt you. And then we spend a lifetime after combat trying to bleed all that back together so we can tell it properly. But in saying that, I would say that writing has become my biggest therapy. I've only written one book, but I have written many papers and many, research just for myself, for other books, and writing other people's stories. It really helps to put language to thought. I mean, that's a therapeutic thing in itself, I've found. So,
and before we lose that kind of, before we move on from that topic, I like to tell my audience there's great power in talking over a beer. Whiskey's made for sipping, wine's made for sipping, beer is made for gulping. You quaff a beer, you sip the whiskey, but you're talking over a beer with friends, and you start to become emotional, you start to lose it. What do? Stop, big swig of beer, regain control, and keep talking. Physiologically speaking, psychologically speaking, just about the best thing you could possibly do until you get drunk. Then it gets counterproductive.
Yeah, then there's diminishing return.
That's a great term. Yeah. So, and it's funny. This is the first war we have ever fought without alcohol. And it's this idea that everybody gathers, has a beer, and talks about what happened. It's been kind of taken away, and there may be an upside to that, but I think in retrospect, I think we lost something. We lost something pretty important, and so we can regain that and sit down over beer with friends or whatever your brew of choice might be. But that idea of the big swig of beer and regain control and keep talking is really a value. And throughout human history, we took the nights off. We did. It wasn't until like World War I we began to have large quantities of night combat. In the Civil War, just a generation before World War I, generation or two, they almost never fought at night. At night we turned off, we all gather around the campfire, we fix our meals, and we talk. And again, one of the healthiest things you could possibly do. And we've kind of lost that, but this business of talking over a meal in the end is one of the valuable things we can do. And the act of swallowing and eating, it brings you in that rest and digest mode versus fight or flight mode, and that healing dynamic. So gather around that beer, gather around that meal, break bed together, talk about what happened. And anytime somebody becomes emotional, stop, take a swig of beer, regain control. That's the goal of the mission. That's what we want people to do. And
that's right.
We live in a time where there's room for lots of books.
Yeah.
Amazon, you can self-publish. Maybe your grandkids and your friends, their own self, read it. Or write that book. You'll be glad you did.
Absolutely. And like, I heard a lot of people say, well, this book's just echoing that book, and that book's just echoing that book. It's like, yeah, but God forbid we all get more dangerous off the same information over time, right? And that's not my quote. I stole that one, but it's so true. It's so true. And if I can interpret my experience just one iota different than somebody else that's written it down, then that's one difference that somebody else can learn from. Right.
That's so well said. It's the heart of it all. My the whole process of my work on killing, on combat. Now we got the book on hunting coming out in March. I've got a book on sleep coming down the road. But that every time somebody gives me a first person narrative, there's almost always some little aspect in there that's new. And everybody has a piece of the puzzle, and we can never solve the puzzle until we put all the pieces together.
Yep.
So that story of yours, it may be almost exactly like some other story, but the one little part that it wasn't is a value. Or the fact that it was is a value. You know, I went to a thing when real high end shooting school, and they had a world champion shooter who trained some of our tier 1 spec ops guys, and I talked about, making headshots, and he said, well, you'll never make a headshot in combat. In real life, you'll never do that. That's all. Well, why? Oh, one of these Delta Force guys tell me he doesn't try to do headshots anymore. Their heads are always moving, and people will naturally avoid it. But there's some freaking science. There's some science. I mean, so one guy tells you this. Was it rifle shots at 100 yards? Was it rifle at 20 yards? Was it pistol at 5 yards? And I've interviewed, no exaggeration, I have interviewed thousands of people who've been in combat, hundreds in writing on killing, and then I retired in 98, and every day when I'm presenting during a break, somebody comes up and shares their story with me. They stay with me over lunch, share their story with me. And I'll give you case after case after case where the battle was ended with headshots. I'm a pistol shooter. It's my hobby, the martial art of the firearm. And I'll give you case after case where you empty the magazine of a pistol into the body, and they're still fighting. You get one headshot, and the fight's over.
Done.
And if you're fighting with pistols, and if you're reasonably close range, and if you're good, and I'm good, and you're good, there's people out there that are really good, boom, go straight for the headshot. It's a showstopper. It's game over. Empty. There's a good chance in this day and age that body armor, even if they don't, the torso can suck up enormous number of rounds. Unless you happen to split that spinal cord, you could blow out the heart, and they still got like 6-7 seconds to empty the magazine. Yeah.
That's something I learned in combat. Like, it's not like the movies. You can shoot somebody many, many times, especially with a small 5.56 ball round. Pointed projectiles, it's going straight through them before their body even, like you said, if you catch a vital organ, you catch a bone, that's one thing. But if you zip them and they're through and through, and then
more so with the pistol.
Yeah, that's right.
Some freaking science. Interview a bunch of people, ask the same question of a bunch of people, and that's really what you do with your book. Even if it's just your personal story, it's enormously valuable as one data point.
Yep.
But when you combine all those data points together, now you got science.
That's right.
And you're making your contribution and taking, this is my little piece of the puzzle. I wrote my book on killing. I wrote my book on combat, generally before the war. Most of what I drew from was before the 20-year war. 21 years now, we're still in Iraq. And those first-person narratives were incredibly rare and precious. And I was seeking them out and bring them together. One of my most recent books is on spiritual combat. And in the end, it's got a spiritual angle to it all, and everybody who takes that angle has got something to give us as well. So take all those directions. The new book I've got coming out on hunting, out in March of 2023.
Okay.
We I'll give you an example of the thought process on hunting. If you think of mankind, our existence, if you think from an evolutionary standpoint, we try to respect all standpoints, but if our species has existed for 24 hours, up until the last 6 minutes, all we did was hunt. We were hunter-gatherers. It's who we are. It's what we do. It's what we were created to do, evolved to do. And so think about auditory exclusion. The shots get muted in combat. Where in the hell did that come from? Well, here's my working theory. If anybody has a better theory, let me know. But in nature, if we have in our mouth, we have the chisel teeth of a run-like-hell rabbit. We have the grinding molars of I just have to outrun the slowest person in the herd, grass eater. and we have the gripping fangs of a
Canine.
of a predator. Inside we have been throughout human history. We've been in the middle of the food chain. You know, records from India say between 1900 and 1910, over 100,000 people were killed by tigers in India. You know, and that was, you know what, just within, barely within living memory.
Mm-hmm.
So this idea of being in the middle of the food chain, it's no fun to be prey. We want to be predator.
Mm-hmm.
There's joy in being the predator. And so studying the hunting process, auditory exclusion, the shots get muted. Most hunters will tell you they don't hear the shot, their ears don't ring. You are still getting hearing loss. The shutouts in the nerve, wear hearing protection when you hunt. There'll be a deaf old geese like it's a pain in the butt.
Yep.
Where in the hell did that come from? What survival purpose did it have in the untold thousands of years before we invented gunpowder? And I think there's only one possible answer. Almost all predators use sound as a weapon. The wolf's bark, the lion's roar, the tiger's roar. Almost all predators use sound as a weapon. Now, when you're running, tuning out the sound has no value. But if you're holding a spear point, and you want that guy to, to land on your spear, and you've got to be steady, and you've got to, the lion's roar is really the top of the roar weapon. It's a multi-harmonic, powerful tool to stun you, to paralyze you, to shut you down.
Mm-hmm.
So being able to tune out that roar would be a survival mechanism. So, that the next, I've got this triad of books. You can't understand combat, you can't understand killing until you understand hunting. And they all come in together. So you see that, the joy of tying these things together and taking that next book. I know you've got a follow-on book you're thinking about. What kind of share some of the thoughts on how your follow-on book is going? What do you think?
It's going good. I got a couple in the works right now, but one that I'm specifically working on covers Afghanistan, covers the withdrawal, HKIA, end of the 20-year war, and then, some skin that I had in that game. Somebody that was near and dear to me that got stuck. And then, subsequently his year-long battle to get out of a war-torn country after.
You said this was your translator.
This was this is my translator. I've had him on the show once, and we've done countless interviews over the phone and research together. But I wanted to show what a nation of patriots, Afghanistan, stood up in a time when we needed them, regardless of how the end panned out, and it wasn't great. But that doesn't mean there weren't great patriots of that country that stood up to fight, for something better for the next generation. And that needs to be told if they're ever going to sustain the light. And so I'm having fun. I'm learning a lot. Working through that book, I'm learning far more than I ever even anticipated learning, which is great. And you know how it goes when a book just kind of starts to take its own form.
Yes.
And point in a direction that maybe you didn't see coming. So that's kind of what I've got going on with that. So I'm going to shift gears on you right here.
Sure.
I also had Lieutenant Colonel retired Wayne Phelps on the show.
Yeah.
And I originally had reached out to you. You put me in touch with Wayne, or somebody from your team put me in touch with Wayne. I had Wayne on, and it was a wealth of information covering on killing, the psychology of killing with drones. And I just had a couple of things that I wanted to pick your mind about, because in going through on combat and on killing, you would almost whittle down to say that our cognitive distance to the killing is our physical distance to the killing. But that's just not the case anymore, is it?
Well, no.
And I would like to know your thoughts on that.
Wayne, I was co-author with Wayne on the book On Killing Remotely. And then the final product was 95% his, and we just put his name on it, but I was proud to have been able to contribute to it. I think it's one of the great contributors to this cycle, and we talk about how when you kill with a drone, and the sniper is similar. You know, it's sniper have tremendous scopes.
Are you talking about because of loitering time?
Yeah, and
observation time.
The sniper is watching and observing and watching, and then whacks them, and then sees the follow-on. Well, it's even more so with the drone, the Predator, the Reaper, and we're whacking somebody with a Hellfire missile. You know, the fires of hell. We make a religious statement every time we whack them. We don't even get it. They get it. So they're mad. But so we whack them with a Hellfire missile. So what they do is they follow this guy for days. It's what they call pattern of life. They follow this individual for days. They become familiar with their life and their family and their interactions. We watch them in detail, and then we find the time when they're alone, and then we kill them, and then we watch the aftermath as the family comes out and picks up the pieces and puts them in a wheelbarrow, and and that's hard. You know, even in combat, in normal combat throughout history, you don't see the family come and pick up the body and carry them off, and you don't see what they're doing. You don't follow them for days in their daily life. So, you know, historically, the physical distance and the cognitive distance were the same. Dropping bombs from 10,000 feet, firing artillery from 3 miles back, no big deal. You know, but as you get closer and closer, it gets harder and harder. And then we've entered this realm of the remote killing from the drone. And I tell everybody, it's so important. And this is the big message I think in a way is no pity party, no macho man. You know, don't cop into a pity party. Oh, this is going to destroy everybody. It's not. The vast majority are made stronger by combat. A new greatest generation are rising up. Right? No pity party, but no macho man. If there is a problem, deal with it. And there's no shame in that. The docs are good. They get better every day. We can treat PTSD, and you can come out the other end stronger.
Yeah, I think it's important. I think that's an important. I don't want to cut you off, but it's important to me to talk about that right there. Is that we are getting better. The treatment is stronger, and this is not a life sentence for you. There are best practices that are getting better every single day, and it is not a death sentence. So, if you are a commander in a service, you should not treat it like it is a death sentence for your Marines, soldiers, airmen. This is something that can come back from, and when they do come back from it, they can be, again, a force multiplier inside your unit. But to negatively stigmatize 20 years of combatants because you don't understand the symptomology that's coming with what they're dealing with is forever will be a mistake, in my opinion.
Yeah. And let me give you an angle on that. There is so much garbage about our troops in this war. You know, we've all heard 22 veterans a day take their life. And now they say it's going to go like 17 a day. Right? But veteran and combat veteran are two different things. Those in the 40s and the 50s and the 60s, we drafted everybody. Elvis Presley was drafted. He served 2 years, he got out, he was a veteran. If Elvis was still alive, and if he killed himself, he'd be one of those 22 veterans a day. Now, every suicide's a tragedy. I get a nephew who's a Marine veteran of Iraq who took his life. Every death is a tragedy. But when we talk about those 22 veterans a day, all but 1 or 2 are not from this current war. The vast majority of them are 70, 80, 90-year-old men who are hitting the end of their life cycle, and that's another whole thing, you know, to talk about. And every suicide's a tragedy, but did you know that? Did you understand that? No, but this lie. They want us to think that it's all from the current war, and they're all committing suicide. When the truth is, of those 22 a day, and 1 is 1 too many, but of those 22 a day, only 1 or 2 are from the current war. Oh, we get it. We got all those Vietnam veterans, but then we got that vast majority of veterans who never saw combat. But when they take their life, they count, you know, throughout the Cold War, you know, the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, the early 70s, they were drafted. They served 2 years, they got out, they're veterans. And so this lie that, you know, that 22 veterans a day take their life, it's a lie of a mission. They want you to think it's all from the current war.
Mm-hmm.
They all have PTSD and they're all committing suicide. No, they don't all have PTSD. A minority does. The vast majority have post-traumatic growth.
Mm.
And the greatest lie of all is that PTSD is untreatable.
Mm.
That's a lie. Why in the face of hundreds of thousands of PTSD cases we treat every year, they're cover full? Why in the face of ever-advancing medical science? Why in the face of the indomitable human spirit? Why would anyone say PTSD is a life sentence? Two reasons. Number one, politics.
Mm-hmm.
The war is evil and they all are destroyed by the war and they've all got PTSD and they're all damaged goods. Bullshit.
Yeah.
They're
some of the greatest individuals that walk the face.
They're a new greatest generation coming home, right?
Mm-hmm.
But number two, even if you do have a problem, we're darn good at treating it and you come out the other end with post-traumatic growth.
Mm.
We all know about the greatest generation, that World War II generation. Well, they knew greatest generation of rising up if we don't mess them up.
That's right.
Nietzsche said, what doesn't kill us only makes us stronger, but Nietzsche stole that from the Bible. 2,000 years before Nietzsche, the Bible says the same thing over and over again. Romans chapter 5, we glory in tribulation. For tribulation worketh patience. Patience experience hope, and hope maketh not ashamed. The idea of being stronger from the bad things in life is not a new idea. The pity party, waving the victim card, that's a new idea.
I don't even know when it started. It started while we were gone. I have my own theories. Maybe me and you can talk offline on those one day. Yeah. I want to shift over. I have a couple of questions from some of my viewership, and the first one goes like this: what is your biggest critique behind how the military is developing its warfighters for tomorrow's fight?
Wow, there's just so many different things. When I was in, the big thing was we had these foxholes, and you had a berm in front of you, and you were firing off to the side. And you don't fire directly in front of you; you fire at the guy to the side, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's really it goes all the way back to Michelangelo, and they're coming straight at you, and the guy over here is going to shoot them from the side, and the guy with them is going to shoot them from the side. But I'm keeping my friend clear. But shooting targets that are moving laterally are the hardest of all targets, and we're not training for moving targets. That's just a little example. The one that comes straight at you is easy to shoot. That's easy. No wind.
Zero lead factor. Yeah.
The one that's running that way, that's a hard target, and we're not training for that. So we're all in this formation, but all we train for is pop-up targets. But I think the biggest area where we're really failing, and there's many nuts and bolts things like that I see that trouble me, but is we're not preparing people for what combat is going to be like, and that's my key. Auditory exclusion, slow motion time, tunnel vision, memory gaps, memory distortions. We're not letting people know those things. The baseline fundamental. The Marine Corps has made my book on combat required reading, so that has that data in there. How could we have had 500 years of gunpowder combat and not let people know about auditory exclusion? But even more important is the aftermath dynamics. You re-experience the event. It's not PTSD. It's normal. The goal is separate the memory from the emotions. Big swig of water, big swig of beer, eat as you talk about it, separate the memory from the emotions. And if you can't do it yourself, don't hesitate to get help. The docs are good and they get better every day. So what they call me in to do, it stuns me that nobody else is doing that. Nobody else is saying, here's what happens in combat. Tunnel vision, auditory exclusion, slow motion time. By the way, bad guys have tunnel vision too. Lateral movement takes you right off their radar screen. I teach people get explosively off the X. If you draw and sidestep, every draw should have a sidestep built into it. Get explosively off the X. The bad guy has tunnel vision too. At least you're this moving target. It becomes orders of magnitude harder to hit.
Mm-hmm.
Best, if they have tunnel vision, you just about bet on it. You come right off their radar screen.
Yep.
So all of these things have deeper application when we think about it. But even more, you expect crazy things in the heat of battle. And all those things, slow motion time, memory gaps, memory distortions, tunnel vision, they meet every definition of a psychotic episode. Those things by themselves would scare the daylights out of you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But we expect crazy things in the heat of battle. A week later, a month later, a smell sets it off, a sound sets it off. You re-experience the event, and it scares the hell out of you because nobody warned you that was going to happen.
That's
and
right.
Nobody taught you what to do. Well, warning it might happen. It's not PTSD. It's normal. What do you do? First and foremost, a big swig of water.
Big drink of water for sure. And these are things that I read about in your books and then experienced after the fact. And you know, it was on the, you know, your books were on the reading list the entire time I was in. So it was like one rank I'd read them, another rank I'd read the book again and take a whole different wealth of information away. And then the next, you know, and then I actually, when I, you know, actually get to combat, you know, I had that tachypsychia, that slowed down, I called it a flow state. I didn't know what else to call it, but it was almost as if, you know, I could take in the battlefield. I could take in my troop movement. I could take in the enemy situation all in a zip. Felt slow, but it wasn't slow. It's very weird how things, auditory exclusion for sure. But what's weird is like I did hear the things I needed to hear. But my mind knew how to separate that out. You know, and so we are definitely an evolved super predator. But if, like you said, if somebody's not teaching you, picking it up, showing you what books to read, showing you what to know about, then when you go into that, you could really start tripping out about what you're actually experiencing. And when you go into it with the knowledge already, you're able to almost harness and leverage it to your ability.
Yes.
Yeah.
Here's the biggest thing of all. If I could just get one thing for everybody to know, it would be about this global epidemic of sleep deprivation.
All right, let's talk about that. That was my next
Sleep
segue.
is a biological blind spot. Mm-hmm. Your body doesn't know how to make you get enough sleep because it always happened naturally. Every night, without fail, it got dark and there was nothing to do. And you could have a little sex, have a little talking, went to sleep. The body didn't have to make you sleep. It happened naturally.
Mm-hmm.
And then we invented electric lighting and television and video games and binge watching TV shows.
Constant stimulus.
Mm-hmm. And suddenly we were in the middle of a global epidemic of sleep deprivation. Mm-hmm. And most people don't even know this. There is a powerful link between sleep deprivation and suicide.
I talk about that a little bit because that's something that I don't know about.
Yeah, I mean, I was one of the first ones to present at a DoD-wide conference of military data that showed a sleep-deprived soldier can be up to 5 times more likely to take their life.
Is this inhibition or is this fatigue?
No, what's happening is this. When we're sleep-deprived, we become stupid. What happens is your intelligence, your judgment, you have impaired judgment. Mm-hmm. 18 hours without sleep, and you have impaired judgment equal to 0.08 blood alcohol legally drunk. Mm-hmm. 24 hours without sleep, you have impaired judgment equal to 0.10 above legally drunk. 2 or 3 nights without sleep, and you are psychotic. Mm-hmm, Any graduate of Army Ranger School tell about hallucinations on the 3rd day without sleep. Mm-hmm. And so this sleep deprivation, you know, and I tell people, my dad started smoking in 1940 when he was 5 years old. He plunked a nickel on the counter, bought a pack of Bull Durham tobacco and rolling paper, started smoking at 5. Hey, candy rots your teeth, right? Cigarettes are good for you. I mean, the cigarette industry had ads that said more doctors smoke Camels. Mm-hmm, and then they said, as your dentist, I recommend Viceroys. Well, dentists say Viceroys, doctors say Camels, which is best? They're poison. They're all poison. They'll kill you. Don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
So what I tell people is the video game industry will never say, you've been playing this game for 36 hours. It's time to get some sleep.
Right.
Facebook will never say, you've been online for 48 hours. It's time to get some sleep. The head of Netflix has said their number one competitor is not other
Sleep.
online providers. Their number one competitor is sleep. The corporate policy of Netflix is to steal your sleep. They're never going to say, you've been binge watching shows for 24 hours. You've got to get some sleep now. They will never do that. They don't care that they're killing you.
Yeah.
So one of the best meta studies of suicide says not only is sleep deprivation a key factor in suicide, is the most remediable factor. If we gave a damn about suicide, if we gave one hoot in hell about suicide, the first thing we deal with is sleep deprivation. We've got to teach sleep management starting in elementary school.
Mm-hmm.
We got to teach sleep hygiene. So alcohol, let's stay with suicide for a minute, then we'll cover a few other areas.
Sure.
Alcohol and suicide have always been closely related. Alcohol creates impaired judgment. Under ordinary circumstance, you cannot take your own life. The resistance is so powerful.
So strong.
You cannot take your own life. The drive to self-preservation is so powerful that alcohol impairs your judgment, and then you make a bad decision and never get a chance to rethink it.
Mm-hmm.
So alcohol and suicide have always been related. But the most pervasive important form of impaired judgment is sleep deprivation. Again, I've got two nephews who took their life. One of them was a very young teenager. He locked himself in his room to play the new video game for 3 days straight. And on the third day, he killed himself. No note, no trauma, Why? We look back in retrospect, almost 20 years later, was he sleep deprived? Boom, of course he was. Did he know the risk of sleep deprivation? Did he know that? Boom, no, he had no idea.
Mm-hmm.
Sleep deprivation of traffic deaths. Decade after decade, traffic deaths have come down. Airbags, seatbelts, medical technology, now everywhere, traffic deaths are back up. And there's a reason why airline pilots and truck drivers are required to log enough sleep. One of the lowest suicide rates in the armed forces are pilots who have a culture of sleep management, and truck drivers who have a culture of sleep management. Hey, you're going to be on the road tomorrow. Get some sleep. Roger out. But, I had a sergeant major tell me they were deployed. They were doing combat patrols all day, but they were in a safe barracks environment at night. He said, I told my troops, it's lights out at 10 o'clock. He said, if I find you up after 10 o'clock playing video games, I'm going to take your video game. He said, these are good troops. They wouldn't disobey an order. But he said, within a week, I had a closet overflowing with video games. They could not play those games.
Mm-hmm.
And the games keep you ramped up. They keep the adrenaline flow pumping. You never get a chance to wind down. You never get that chance to relax.
Mm-hmm.
But and let's go back to suicide. Suicide has exploded in every nation around the planet. Teen suicides have exploded, every age group. Between age 10, 11, 12-year-old teenage girls, the suicide rate has tripled per capita in just last decade. So here's parenting 101 for the 21st century. When you send your kid to bed at night, take their cell phone away from them.
Yep.
No laptop in the room, no cell phone in the room. They got to go to the room and sleep. So a cop came up to me during a break in one of my presentations. He said, I had a good girl. He said, she was an A student. She said, Dad, it's embarrassing. You don't have to take my cell phone every night. You can trust me.
Mm-hmm.
He said, so I trust her. I let her keep her cell phone. He said, if a little while later, she took her life. He said, my little girl took her life. And we never knew the hell she was living in.
Mm-hmm. Couldn't get away from it, could she?
We looked at the text messages on her cell phone.
Mm-hmm.
And it was ceaseless, vicious bullying over her cell phone every night, night after night. And you can't just ignore that stuff. We're not wired that way.
Mm-hmm.
He said it was heartrending. to see her up all night long, night after night, trying to defend herself, trying to find somebody to stand up for herself. He said, I knew my little girl was bullied to death. What I didn't understand until now, she was sleep deprived, tormented, and bullied to death in front of my eyes, and I let it happen. He said, I can't ignore that text message in the middle of the night. How can we expect our kids to?
Right.
He said, the one thing on earth I could have done for my little girl was take her cell phone every night, let her turn off all the bad stuff in this world. But who's going to be your mommy? Who's going to make you get that sleep? So
right.
Sleep deprivation, major factor in suicide. The new factor causing an explosion in suicide around the planet. Major factor in traffic deaths. They exploded around the planet. It is a factor in obesity and heart disease. It's a factor in Alzheimer's. People say, I'll sleep when I'm dead. You have a decade of Alzheimer's first, you idiot. Do an online search between sleep deprivation and dementia. Boom. Sleep deprivation, Alzheimer's. Boom. It'll come right up. Online search about sleep deprivation, suicide. Boom. It'll come right up. It's also a key factor in opiate overdoses. Now, why are opiates a drug of choice? Prescription opiates have always been there. Why are they suddenly the drug of choice? Because sleep deprivation creates chronic pain. You don't sleep. The tendons and muscles never fully relax.
Right.
You hurt, doc.
No reparative work being done.
Give me a pill to fix it. You don't need a pill. You need more sleep. And here's the other part of the equation. A global explosion of caffeine abuse. So Sleep 101, sleep management. If I just give you two of many, many factors. Number one, cut off all caffeine shortly after lunch. The half-life of caffeine in your body is 5 hours. That means the caffeine you took at 5 p.m. is still at half strength when you go to bed at 10 p.m.
Yeah.
It's making you have bad quality sleep. Caffeine doesn't make you not sleep. Caffeine makes it easier to stay awake and harder to have good quality sleep.
Right.
You're hurting your sleep. Sleep is that little vacation that waits at the end of every day. Guard your sleep, protect your sleep. And caffeine is the enemy of good sleep. And these mega doses of caffeine that we're putting in our bodies, for the first 15 years of the war, we passed out energy drinks like water. And then about 6-7 years ago, two major Department of Defense-wide studies on the energy drinks said these things are poison. And for all practical purposes, there is a ban on issuing energy drinks to U.S. Armed Forces. In an academic environment, the one taking the most energy drinks were the ones with the worst grades. In a tactical environment, the one pounded down the most energy, we're the ones most likely to not off on the job. We're in the middle of this epidemic of caffeine addiction. So taper off slowly. We got people taking mega doses of energy drinks. They go cold turkey and they go into seizures. I'm talking crap yourself, piss yourself, convulsions, seizures when they go cold turkey on caffeine. Just to taper off slowly.
Yeah.
But number one, this caffeine abuse. But number two, it's just the quality of sleep. You may not get one more minute of sleep. You'll get quality sleep if you cut off caffeine shortly after lunch and a completely dark room. You're designed to sleep in total darkness. I'm a huge science geek. My favorite website is sciencedaily.com. Major study in the sleep lab. Totally dark room. Bathroom light is on and the door is shut. The light coming under the crack of the bathroom door is enough light to stop your body from producing the melatonin that you need. Melatonin, melatonin, melatonin is the neurotransmitter that body produces that allows us to sleep. If you don't sleep in the dark, your body can't produce melatonin. So combine it with the sleep mask. One of the greatest gifts. My grandson just graduated AIT. I got a grandson in the fight now. I got a son, Spec Ops, 9 combat tours, ready to retire. I got a grandson that just started. I sent my grandson off. He had 2 years of college, and he joined the Guard. I sent him off to college. He's heard my class many times. He's helped me with my class. What's the thing most likely to kill my grandson? suicide, traffic deaths, and opiate overdoses. What's the one thing I can do to help preserve his safety? Sleep management. And his gift was several different kinds of sleep masks.
There you go.
And see which one works. I talked to him. Are you using your sleep mask? Yes, sir. Are you getting enough sleep? Yes, sir. That's the critical piece of information. There's one sleep mask on Amazon that has over 60,000 reviews for a stinking sleep mask.
Wow.
But that's how people feel about it when they start using that sleep mask. They want to give feedback. They want to talk about how important it was.
Absolutely.
The only negative ones are the people, big honking noses that can't completely shut out the light. Well, doing little clipping, adjust it, get another kind, see which one works for you.
Yep.
My wife likes one that's weighted. It's got like this sand that creates weight on the eyes that she likes. And my grandson's got this big felt piece that goes all around the head. I like the one that's got 60,000 reviews. It keeps pressure off the eyes. It seals all the way around.
Nice.
But sleep in the dark. Teach your children to sleep in the dark and combine it with a sleep mask. And I mean a good one. Get 2 or 3. You know, when you get the better ones, they're 20, 30, 40 bucks. That's nothing compared to your health. You may not get one more minute of sleep. You got quality sleep if you do it in the dark. And just those two, I mean, there's so much more. No more than one drink on the way to bed. There are so many people using alcohol to put themselves to sleep. It's so counterproductive. If you need help going to sleep, there's so many things we can do. Don't use alcohol. No more than one drink on the way to bed. The sleep mask makes me sweaty. That's good because you're supposed to bring the temperature down. Do it in the dark and drop the thermostat a couple of degrees. And the combination is powerful with that sleep mask. You know, don't touch the snooze alarm. Those are doing actual harm to your life. You know, the first decision of every day is to surrender my body and hit the snooze alarm. Is first decision of every day to get the hell out of bed. Am I in charge of my body in charge of me? Set your alarm for 10 alarms. 6 o'clock, 6:01, 6:02, 6:03, 6:04. By the time you turn them all off, you're up. And you that gets up in the morning has got to get you. The you that goes to bed at night has got to make you get up in the morning, get the hell out of bed. So, sleep is the one area that we should be teaching starting in elementary school about the need to sleep in a dark room. And there's so many things that we could be applying, but that's my great issue above and all else. Suicide, traffic deaths, opiate overdoses, heart disease, obesity. There's a powerful link between sleep deprivation and obesity. You want to watch your weight? Watch your sleep. And all of these things are happening, and nobody is connecting the dots because they want you to keep watching their TV.
That's right.
They want you to keep playing their game. They want you to keep on social media. They're never going to tell you.
It's the racket.
And they want your children. The most evil thing about this is selling it to children. I wrote a book on what's happening with the video games, the violence, assassination generation. In 2005, the data was so overwhelming, the state of California overwhelmingly voted to regulate children's access to violent video games. The data was that strong. Home Hollywood, home Silicon Valley, overwhelmingly voted. These are things that adults can do, but kids can't. The violent video games. The video game industry fought all the way to the Supreme Court. They said we have a constitutional First Amendment right to sell any game to any kid at any age. They conned 7 old men, 7 Supreme Court justices, probably never played Pong in their life, overturned the California law. People don't even know that. So this industry is fighting tooth and nail, not just to steal your sleep, but to steal the sleep of your children. And they don't care that they're killing children. They don't care that they're a factor. They just censor that data.
Yeah, as long as they make their bottom line, right?
Boom. And like selling tobacco to my dad when he was 5 years old. 55 years later, those cigarettes finally killed him. But sleep deprivation is going to kill you right now. The suicide's going to kill you right now. Traffic deaths kill you right now. And opiate overdoses are killing people right now. This isn't happening 50 years in the future. This is happening right stinking now by a corporate predator who fights tooth and nail to sell this product to children. And we don't even know. And so we got to get the word out. That's the one thing, above all else, if we were talking about emotional wellness, mental wellness, sleep is a weapon. We've got to weaponize sleep and use it in our daily battle to master our environment, to master the challenges that we've been given.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, there you got it, guys. If you're not sleeping right, or if you need to work on your sleep, there's a wealth of knowledge coming at you right there. Well, sir, I have one more question, and then I think you're helping me out a lot. I'm learning a lot today. So, when you speak to your law enforcement community, regarding dicey stops, bad situations, what's the number one piece of advice you give them?
Well, the number one is the heart of de-escalation.
Mm-hmm.
The heart of calming somebody else down is to be calm yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And that comes from training and confidence. If you know you're a bad shot and you're no good with a gun and you barely got through the academy with lots and lots of help, then you're going to live your life in fear of having to go to the gun because you know you're no good.
Mm-hmm.
But if you know you're good, then there's confidence. And you're less likely to have to shoot because of that confidence.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You will de-escalate. You will be calm. You will make calm, rational decisions. What lies at the heart of the matter is preparing for combat. And your department will never give you all the training you need. You need to do some stuff on your own.
Mm-hmm.
The primary thing I talk about is about finding a hobby, finding an activity, hopefully something you can do with your family that will contribute to your skills.
Sure, yep.
And at the top of that list is hunting. Now, you talked about hunting when you were a kid. You talked about, what a family activity to do. We're in the woods, the wellness of being in the woods. We're part of nature. We're part of the cycle of life and death. We're out there immersed in it. It's a beautiful and powerful thing. Martial arts. Every cop should be involved in some kind of martial arts. Do it with your family. Do it together. What a great activity you can do. Hunting, martial arts, those are the kind of examples of the things we can do together. But it all comes back to your skills and your confidence. If I go hand to hand, am I confident in my skills? Well, the martial art provides that. I have to go for my gun, and I like Hojitsu, the martial of the firearm. H-O-J, Hotel Oscar Juliet, J-U-T-S-U, Hojitsu.
Sure.
.com. Martial art of the firearm. I love it. I love the martial arts. But shooting is the American martial art.
Yeah.
We are the people of the gun. And we are the ones who introduced gunfighting, and everything that has to do with the shooting as a martial art came from America. This is our martial art. An amazing guy named Jeff Hall, a ranger in Vietnam right at the end of the war, just a few years older than me, the most decorated Alaska state trooper, high-level martial artist, multiple styles, has resurrected the Japanese art of the firearm. And so shooting as a martial art is so powerful. And look at things happening around our nation. So develop your shooting skills, develop your hunting skills, develop your martial arts, have a hobby that will reinforce your survival values.
Yes, sir.
And it ties into everything you do with that confidence and that calm. And FBI studies of people who murder cops, they're hunting for cops. They see somebody looking sharp, standing tall, got a marksmanship badge on. They say, I'll pass on this guy. They're waiting for
hard target versus soft target. Yeah.
Donut stains, and they're looking for that. So to just have that confidence, you can see it. They back off from it. They're looking for soft prey. They're not looking for a fight.
That's right. And what would you say to people in the Leo community, though, that feel like they don't get enough training on the job? And you said you got to do some stuff by yourself. I know I have many law enforcement members in my family, extended family. My little brother is in law enforcement, and they don't have always got the budget, and they don't always have the resources. So he makes sure it's part of his collateral duty to ensure that he's going and shooting from a holster. I mean, a lot of people say go shooting, but it's not just go shooting. It's, go shooting like you would anticipate being in a gunfight. You should be drawing, you should be doing multiple positions, things of that nature. And what do you say to that? I mean, is that just the answer, is that you need to put in your own time? Will it never be a resource?
When I teach chiefs and I teach sheriffs, LAPD, last I heard, LAPD still has a bonus for qualifying expert.
Oh, wow.
And it's like, it adds up to like $300-400 a year. Back in the 50s, that was a lot of money, but it's still a lot of money. I tell my chiefs and sheriffs, roll the next pay raise into a marksmanship bonus. And getting that marksmanship bonus, December 1st of every year, it could be an enormous boon. And have the range open on the weekends and have ammo available. And if there's a reward, that marksmanship bonus.
Competition breeds results.
Boom. You provide them the opportunity to train. You provide them the incentive to train. Boom, they're going to be there. They're going to do it.
Yeah, and then that reinforces the confidence that you speak of. And now you're not dreading going to the gun. It's like, okay, if I need to go there, I can go there.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that means it's less likely to happen.
Yep.
The one that lives their life in fear, the predator will push them. They will feed on that. The one that's absolutely confident that I don't want to go to the gun, but I'm ready. And I've waited all my life for this. And if you're the one, bring it on.
Yep.
I don't want to
I'm the one your mama told you about.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
That becomes our goal.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, Mr. Dave Grossman, everybody, I know it's down and dirty. We've been going for about an hour and a half now, and I don't want to take too much more of your time, sir. But I appreciate you coming back on, and I will be in contact. After we get offline here, I want to reach out and give you my appreciation for being on here again. But I really appreciate you. I really appreciate your work over the years. And what you've given back to not only the law enforcement and military communities, but their families as a way of those family members that are doing their due diligence to understand their spouses or their children after a time of war. These are great books to pick up and kind of understand the psyche that goes behind pulling the trigger and putting people down. So. Again, I appreciate it. Longtime hero of mine, and I hope you continue to do good work, and God bless you, sir.
And you, my brother, the Bible says, as iron sharpens iron, so it is one individual uplifting another. It's a two-way street.
That's right.
Iron sharpens iron, brother. It's an enormous event. My website is GrossmanOnTruth.com. The truth on killing, the truth on combat, the truth on hunting, GrossmanOnTruth.com. All the books are there, and we'll try to on Facebook and LinkedIn, Lieutenant Colonel Dave Grossman.
Yep.
When this show's ready to post, we'll put the word out to them and have a chance to give your little boost and opportunity for us to work together to iron sharpens iron. So God bless you, and Merry Christmas and a blessed New Year to you and yours, my brother.
Hey, Merry Christmas to you too, sir. I appreciate you. Okay. Until next time, guys, choices, not chances.
Well, that concludes this episode. Thanks for listening to Choices Not Chances podcast. Please share, like, and subscribe wherever you listen or watch our podcast. You can also follow us on social media at Choices Not Chances podcast. Thanks, and have a great day.
Louisiana Gun Shop, your firearm headquarters, specializing in concealed carry guns, ammo, and training. You can get your Louisiana permit with us. Also a large selection of AR-15s, or if you are that build-it-yourself type of guy or gal, we have all the parts to build and customize your own AR-15. Glock, SIG, Taurus, Ruger, we have all the brands, both in the store or at LouisianaGunshop.com.
Not too far. You're marking a building. Hit him. Yeah, that's good. That's a good shot. That's money. Yeah.